Cool, thanks. So just to reiterate, hi everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar, which is a monthly training from SalesMethods on OrgChartPlus. My name is Charlie Connor. I'm a senior business analyst with SalesMethods. I've been at the company nearly 5 years now. My details are on the screen there, so I hope and I'll put this up again at the end so you can have my details, but I just wanted to kind of introduce myself and let you know that obviously if you want to get in touch with me after the training or anything like that, then my details are on the screen. But yeah, thanks very much for joining. So today's session is just going to be a training session on OrgChartPlus. So I'm going to take you through a relatively in-depth walkthrough of the tool, what the functionality is, what's a few maybe hints and tips that you might not have noticed before. And then towards the end, we're going to look at how we can actually export the different views of OrgChartPlus and then how we might be able to help ourselves by doing that. So I'm just going to jump into Salesforce now. And so hopefully, and what you can see here is I've opened an opportunity in Salesforce. So as I'm sure you'll be able to tell, this is Salesforce Lightning. The tool works in exactly the same way in Classic. So if you are on Classic, don't worry, everything I'm going to show you is going to be relevant. It's just a slightly different way of actually accessing the tool in Classic. So just to kind of briefly, in Classic, you've got your accounts and opportunity pages, and then at the top of those pages, you have some buttons, and OrgChartPlus will be there for you to click on. Whereas in Lightning, as we've got open here, there are actually a couple of different ways that we can access the tool. So in a similar way to Classic, if I click on this drop down in the top right hand corner, we've got this OrgChartPlus option here. So that's kind of the equivalent of the button view that we have in Classic. Whereas what we can also do is, so if we look over here, we've got our tabs, and then we can actually turn OrgChartPlus into one of these tabs. So if I click on that, and then it will open up the tool actually within the opportunity page itself. So it's just a matter of visibility, and obviously each organization is different in terms of how they want to actually access the tool. But one of the things that we think is quite nice in terms of the new Lightning functionality is that you can embed the tool actually within the account or opportunity page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up OrgChartPlus by using the button. And so again, this is on an opportunity, but the OrgChartPlus exists within your accounts as well. So it's exactly the same tool, apart from one small difference, which I'll explain as we go through. But by and large, the tool is exactly the same in your accounts and opportunities. So if I open up the tool, click on OrgChartPlus, it will appear for me in how we can see it now. The first thing that we're asked to do when we're opening OrgChartPlus is to create a chart. So if I haven't created a chart previously, this is going to be the option that is flagged up to me. So what I can do here is I can choose from the type of chart we want to create as well. So there are two different types, the reports to organization chart and the decision tree chart. The difference being is that a reports to chart uses the reports to field on the contact object in Salesforce to help us pre-populate these charts. So don't necessarily worry if you haven't heard of that field or if you're not aware of that. The more you use the tool, the more relevant it will become. And by no means is it a prerequisite to using the tool. You can still use the tool and all its functionality if you haven't used that field previously. But as I mentioned, that reports to field is more likely going to be seen in an account because you're looking at the typical hierarchy of the organization. So with the CEO or chairman at the top and then so on and so forth. A decision tree, on the other hand, is more likely going to be seen in an opportunity because it allows you to kind of flex the hierarchy and move people around without actually affecting that reports to structure. So if you're working on an opportunity and perhaps somebody who you're targeting isn't the most influential person within their own organization, you're going to want to put them at the top of the org chart. And if you want to do that, but you don't want to affect the actual reporting structure that you built in Salesforce, then the decision tree is the type of chart that you want. And obviously, if you hover over them, you get a brief description on the right-hand side there of what each of those do. You then have the ability to initially import some different people as well. You can import all your contacts from the account that you're looking at, and then you can also import all the contacts from the opportunity. So if you've already been specific enough to kind of specify which contacts you wanted to bring in on the opportunity, you can just leave that checked, and then the tool will automatically go and read that list for you. And then below that, you can also import any related external contacts as well. You obviously then just have to give the chart a name, and then as soon as you click on create, all this will appear for us. The other option that I have here is to open a chart that I've previously created, and you can create as many different charts as you like per account or opportunity. So one of the examples that we see quite a lot, especially on accounts, is if you wanted to have one maybe master org chart that kind of housed all the contacts within the organization. And then if you wanted, because sometimes that might be kind of a little bit too much to deal with, it might be too many contacts, might be a little bit too busy. So if you wanted to split it up into slightly more manageable chunks, whether it's different departments within the organization, different geographical locations, whatever it happens to be, you can then go and split it up into more manageable chunks, and you can use those smaller charts as kind of almost subsidiary charts to that particular master chart. But again, it's completely up to you how you'd actually want to do this. But I'm just going to create a chart from scratch, just to show you kind of the process of actually going and building out the org chart from blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to deselect these three options so that if I click on create now, it gives me a completely blank chart. So now the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to want to bring in some contacts, which are the people that will exist down here on the left-hand side. And the way that I do that is I use this contacts button at the top here. So if I click on that, I then have two different options. I can either import the contact directly from the Salesforce database, or I can add a new contact entirely. So if they're not already in Salesforce, add new contact is the button that I would click on. And if I wanted to do that, I just click on that. Then it takes me straight to the new contact page in Salesforce. And so this is all completely standard functionality. And then all you have to do, enter in all the information that you have in here. So you can see you've got all your standard info, put that in. And then as soon as you click on save, that page disappears and the contact will appear in your list. The other method, which is importing contacts from Salesforce, if I click on import contact, we then get the ability to actually go and search in various different places. We can either search for the individual by name, if we know who we're looking for. We can specify which accounts we wanted them to search in. So you can do, if you were looking at for all accounts. You can also, over here on the left, if I was to click on the word account, it would then go and search all the contacts that are actually assigned to this particular account in Salesforce. So we can see a whole bunch there. And then opportunity, again, is just a bit more specific, and it brings in all the individuals that I've given an opportunity role to on that particular opportunity. So for example, if I just wanted to click on opportunity, bring in all those people, if I just click on add all down here on the right hand side, then they should all appear for me down here on the left hand side. And so what we can now see is, so we can see all of these individuals actually have a role. So the one main difference between OrgChartPlus within accounts and opportunities is that in an opportunity, we have role displayed here, so what their opportunity role is, whereas in the accounts in Salesforce, we actually display title. So instead, you just see two different things here, but that's pretty much the only difference between the two versions of the tool. What you can see over here on the left in these two columns are what we call the attributes that exist for these particular individuals. And these already have been pre-populated in another chart, which is why they appeared. But obviously, if you were just starting out building the tool, then these would all be blank. There are a couple of different ways that you can edit these. You can either right-click on the individual and go down to Sales Attributes. And here we've got Influence, which is how influential this person is within their own organization. And we've got None, Low, Medium, and High. And then we've got Opinion, which is what is their opinion of us as an organization. And again, you've got Low, Medium, and High. And then what you can also do in this section is you can change the role if you thought that that was necessary. So you can do that as well. The other option that you have is to go and use this attribute section at the top here. So again, we've got Influence and Opinion, and we can go and select there. one thing you might notice as well is that this intimacy option is actually not available to us. And the reason for that is because for that, we need to actually include some team members in this chart. So in terms of bringing in team members, so that those would be colleagues of ours. If you go and click on this team button at the top here, you have these three different options. So you've got import team member, which is obviously one of your internal team. You've got import partner contact. So if you wanted to import a Salesforce contact as part of your team, you would use that. And then finally, you can also import some competitors as well. So let's just say, for an example, we've got some team members here. And then if I was to click on all team members, that would then give me a list of everybody who has a Salesforce license within my the org that I'm working in. So if I was to look through here, and let's say I wanted to go and pick on Richard Bull, if I click on add, that will then bring Richard Bull up here, as you can see at the top there. And then what we need to do to populate the intimacy, you can see a couple have already been populated, is we need to click on the intersecting square between Richard and one of the client contacts. So what we can see here is, so if I was to now look at this, we can now see this intimacy option actually becomes available to us. So as soon as we click on one of these intersecting squares, the intimacy is there, but then if I was to deselect it, it then disappears again. So you've got to make sure that you've clicked on one of the intersecting squares, click on intimacy, and then choose one of these options. So what these different options mean, so we've got T, which means that this person is a target of ours, but we're not in contact with them, and we would like to be. C, there's been some form of contact. R, there's regular contact there. And then S, there's a strong relationship that exists between the two people. So obviously it's important to try and get as much of that information down as possible, because that's the information that we're then going to actually be able to leverage as we start to move further into the tool. Just to show you an example as well, if I click on import competitors, it's exactly the same process. You can either search for them by name, or if you click on all competitors, you can go and click on one of these. So for example, Telefonica, click on add, and then they appear in much the same way. Because obviously if you're working on an opportunity and you know that one of the contacts has a good relationship with a competitor, then that can be pretty crucial as well. So let's say that we've got somebody here who's sales attribute, we can go to intimacy, and let's say they've got a strong relationship. So that's going to be some really important information that we really want to be able to know when we're actually working on this opportunity itself. So one of the other things as well, which I'll briefly mention, is, so for example, if the contact hasn't been assigned to this opportunity and you wanted to include them, if you click on contacts and if you import contact, let's say we click on account this time. So now we can see all these people who haven't been assigned to the opportunity. Let's say we've got Alvin here and I wanted to bring them in. If I click on add, what we'll be able to see is Alvin down here doesn't actually have a role. So that means that they haven't been assigned to the opportunity in Salesforce. But if I was to right click, go to sales attributes and go to the role option. So if I was to select one of these roles, that would then automatically populate Alvin on the opportunity in Salesforce. So because the tool is 100% native in Salesforce, those kind of things always write that back to the database. So you don't have to worry about any duplication or anything like that. So if I thought this person was a decision maker, just click on that. And then as soon as you click on save, all that information shoots back to the database. So I think that's pretty much everything on the matrix view. So just as a kind of a recap, we've got the client contacts down here on the left-hand side. We've got their attributes. We've got influence. So how influential are they? Opinion. What is their opinion of us? And then on the right-hand side, we've got team members and competitors at the top, with what we call the level of intimacy between the individuals. So how strong is the relationship that exists between these people? So moving on now, we're just going to pop into the org chart view, which we can navigate to in the top left-hand corner here. So if I click on this, we come to this view here. And what you will see is you'll see all of these individuals at the top in what we call the loading bay. And then all you have to do to actually start populating the org chart is to drag and drop these contacts onto the page. So for example, if we've got Aaron over here who's CEO, so let's say he's the head of our org chart, just drop him in there. and then all we have to do is find who reports into him. So we've got David, who's the CIO, and then as soon as all you have to do is hover over the contact that they report into, let go of the mouse, and then that populates in there. So you can see here, I'm just doing this really quickly now. It's all extremely easy to do. I'm not too fussed about the titles at the moment. But I'm just going to show you how kind of quick and easy it is to actually start building out these org charts. So as you can see, pretty easy. Once you know the actual hierarchy structure, you can build out pretty quickly. So then if you've got your kind of base org chart structure, you can then start to do and see a few things surrounding the actual org chart. So within these individual contact boxes, we can see a few different things. We can see the influence, which is that shading behind the contact box. So if they have a thick level of shading, that means they're pretty influential. We can see the opinion, which is the thumbs up, thumbs down in there. And then you can also see the intimacy as well. So at the moment, the intimacy that's being displayed to us is the strongest relationship that this person has within their own organization. With someone in our organization. So if I'm looking at Leanne here and I can see we've got an S, that means that we know that she's got a strong relationship, but we don't know who that's with. So if I wanted to be a bit more specific, I can use this focus drop down at the top here to go and pick one of the team members. So you can see we've only got Richard in there and Telefonica. So for example, if I was to click on Telefonica, now we can see Telefonica's relationships. So we can see that William has a strong relationship with Telefonica because that's what we populated in the matrix. And then obviously if I switch that to Richard, we can see that we've got the strong relationships with Leanne, Nick, and then the regular with George as well. So if I wanted to do that, I can, but the default option is highest intimacy at the top there. Another thing that we can see in these org chart boxes is we can see these notepads in the bottom right-hand corner of a certain view. And what that is telling us is that we've got some more information surrounding the particular individual. So if I was to double click on Nick here, we bring this contact details pop-up window up, and we can make it a bit bigger if we need to. And what we've got is, so we've got some details at the top, which everyone has, so name, title, etc. We've then got the accounts and opportunities that they've been in previously, so that we can have a nice idea about their particular history of the particular individual that we're looking at. So every contact has this bit, but then if I've got the notepad in the bottom right-hand corner, we can then know that we've got some information either in contact description or opportunity notes. So here is contact description, and we can see some information in there. So if we see this notepad, then we know that, and we haven't used this chart before, we know that somebody might have entered in some information which could be crucial to us moving further down the line. Some other things that I can do on this particular view, they all appear when I right-click on the contact. So if I right-click, we've got the details, which I just showed you, so it's another way of getting to that. You can then import by relationship. So if you wanted to then bring in all the individuals who we knew reported into this person from the database, you can do that. And then obviously if you wanted to know who their managers were, you can do that as well. You've got the sales attributes, which we looked at in the previous view, so we know what those will do. We've then got this relationship option. So this allows you to populate the informal relationships that exist within the organization. So for example, obviously, because these can be just as important as those formal relationship lines, but if I thought that somebody influences somebody else within this organization, I could just click on influences, click on the individual, and then that populates an arrow in there for us. So we can start to see pretty clearly what those informal relationships are. And so obviously you can do that as many times as you like. And the green lines are supposedly good relationships. And then if I choose in conflict with, then that turns up as a red line. So again, you can start to kind of get a pretty quick view about which are the good and bad relationships in there. We've then got the ability to give the contact boxes a colored border. And what I think a fair amount of you guys will see when you're using the tool is just a palette of different colors. So instead, what we've done here is we've picked out a certain few colors. we've given them labels so that we can have a clear idea of what those colors mean. However, obviously with you guys, what you might have set up is just the colors with no labels, so you can choose what those want to mean on an individual basis. But if you wanted to have a kind of a standard throughout the organization, you can. It just might be something that you need to kind of talk about internally first. Then if it's something that you agree on, we can help you get that set up, no problem at all. So for instance, if I thought this person was a champion of ours, I just click on that, and then it populates that colored border there, so we can have a bit of a clearer view about what's going on. We then got a couple of options down here in terms of layout. So if you wanted to change the way that the contacts are appearing, you can. Typically, people will probably leave this alone, just because obviously the typical kind of org chart structure is horizontal. And then if you wanted to show and hide a certain level of subordinates, you could do that as well. Then you can show and hide certain fields. So if you wanted to show the account name on the contact page, on the contact box, sorry, you can. If you wanted to do that. And then finally, you've got the ability, or you can actually do it from Salesforce. So if you're in an opportunity, you can delete them from the Salesforce opportunity. And then likewise, if you're in an account, you can do the same thing. So that it's the easiest in making changes there. One of the things that we often do as much as we can, and we advise our customers and our clients, potential clients to do, is share these org charts with the people that they're working with. So for instance, if you're working on an opportunity and you wanted to get a bit more of an idea of what the organization looked like, or what this kind of decision tree looked like, just share it with the customer, because it's a really nice way to be able to get them to kind of open up about what you've got right, what you've got wrong. And it's a much quicker conversation rather than kind of doing it over the phone or via email and things like that. One of the things that you might not want to do, however, is show Aaron that we think he's in conflict with Leanne. So for instance, what we can then do is if I click on this chart button at the top and I go down here, we've got what we call this privacy mode. So if I click on that, it then hides all the potentially sensitive information that I've got within the chart. So if you wanted to then take this into a meeting and not have to worry about offending anyone or anything like that, just turn the privacy mode on, and then you can take it knowing that nobody's going to be offended. It doesn't delete any of the info, obviously, it just hides it temporarily. So if you click on it again, everything appears as it was. Also, just beneath that, we've got this show legend option. So if I click on that, this kind of box appears here, and we can then see in a bit more detail what is actually going on within the chart. So if we wanted to be a little bit, or if we were new to the tool and we wanted to be a bit more clear about what we're looking at, just open the legend up and you can see everything that's going on as well. One of the things, the last thing that I'll show you on this view is something that I just forgot to mention earlier, is you can actually display your team members on the org chart as well. So for instance, if I've got Richard here and I right click on Richard, we've then got this option to show on the org chart. So I click on that, back into the org chart, and now we can see Richard in this green box here. So green obviously signifies that they're a team member. And if I was to do the same with the competitor, which I'll just show you now, they will appear in red, because obviously that's, so is if you right click on Richard, you can then populate the informal relationships externally as well. So for instance, if you wanted to know that Richard was socializes with Aaron, that might be a really important relationship to know, and it just gives you a really nice clear idea about the different touch points you've got into the organization that you're looking into. So if you did want to do that, that's how you do it. So that's pretty much everything on the org chart view. What I'm actually going to do for the final view, the molecule, is I'm going to open up the chart that we've previously created, just so we've got a bit more information in the final view. So I'm going to continue without saving. Here we go. So we've got an org chart here. So for now, if I pop into the molecule view, which is in the top right, what we can then start to see is, so in the middle, we've got us as an organization. And then all the people that we have the strongest relationships with are closest into us. So in here, you've got Alfred, who's a strong relationship, Nick's a strong, and then you can see all these guys out here are actually regular contacts. And then you can see Edward, who's just got that C, is only a contact of ours as well. But one of the great things about this particular view is you can actually make anybody the center. So for example, as I mentioned, we've got us as an organization in the middle, but then if you go to the focus area at the top, you've got team members at the top here. So you've got all those guys. And then if you scroll down, you can actually click on one of the client contacts as well. So for an example, if we're looking at this and we can see somebody like George here, he's very influential. We've supposedly got regular contacts with him, but for whatever reason, he doesn't like us. So for example, if I then go and click on George Osborne, that then puts him straight in the middle of the page, and then we can see his relationships. So now we know that he's got pretty strong relationships with these two team members, and then even Leanne is one of the people closest into him from his own company. So if I was looking at this and I was thinking, how am I going to get in touch with George? Just put him in the middle of the view, and then we can start to see what the best route might be in terms of getting his support back. So it might be asking Philip to set up an introduction or a meeting or something along those lines. So just to show you the difference, I can pick on one of the team members as well. Then you can see Alison there, who's got regular contacts with these two. So again, you can start to see what the kind of different political circles are, so to speak. So just to put this back to the default, which is the highest intimacy, one of the things I'll say as well is you don't have to worry about dragging and dropping on this view. It uses all the information from the previous two views to populate itself. So you don't have to worry about anything like that. So that's everything on the molecule view. And so what I'm going to do now is, so I've gone through the three views, and what I'm going to show you now is how to actually export these different views. So I'm going to use the org chart for this because typically that's going to be the view that people want to export. So, and the way that I do that is if I click on chart at the top here, we've got some admin at the top where you can create new charts, rename them, delete them, so on and so forth. And then we come to these four exporting options. So the first one is we can print the chart, which is relatively self-explanatory. Oh, we've got a rogue contact down there in the bottom right-hand corner. But if you wanted to kind of fiddle around with the page layout, you can, whether it's portrait or landscape. It's completely up to you. You can obviously print a legend as well, which will appear down there. And then you're away. I'm just going to delete this other contact. We'll move her up here. And then if I go back to chart, I can then export. So I've got print. So if I click on that now, it obviously becomes a little bit more manageable. So just to give you an idea there, we've then got this exporting option, which these three options all download directly to your computer. So if you wanted to do it just as an image file, I click on that, you get this view here, and you can kind of fiddle around with the size of the image. You can give it a name again, click on a legend, and then as soon as you save this, it just downloads as a PNG file to your computer, and you can go and put that wherever you like. The other two options, which I think are pretty cool, is you can export the org chart directly into either Word or PowerPoint. So for example, I'll use PowerPoint for this example. You can either choose a file that you've previously been working on. So if you're working on an RFP, an opportunity, or an account plan, something along those lines, you can upload it and then specify which slide you wanted it to appear at, or you can then select a blank presentation. So if I do that, click on Show Legend, click on OK. Again, this is all real time. So this is kind of how quick it all is. As soon as you open it up in the PowerPoint, we have it here. And one of the cool things about this is it's actually still relatively editable within this format. So you can do things like move the legend around. You could change people's name, all that kind of stuff. So obviously you can't do the dragging and dropping because PowerPoint's not quite that sophisticated, but it does give you some flexibility in terms of you don't have to keep on going in and out of OrgChartPlus to change small details in here. So back to these last couple of options. So we've got exactly the same options in terms of image, Word, and PowerPoint, but instead of downloading it to your computer, it just downloads directly to the Salesforce record, whether it's the account or opportunity. So again, you've got those three options. And then finally, you've got export as web page URL. So if I click on that, you can then send somebody a direct link to the tool itself so that they don't have to worry about kind of navigating to it from anything like that as well. So I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to go through today. So, I mean, if anybody's got any questions, I'm just having a look in the questions on the webinar now, and there aren't any. So hopefully that means that I've done a relatively decent job of explaining the tool. This is being recorded, so obviously we'll send this out after we've finished. But if you do have any questions or anything like that, I'll just pop this back up on screen now. And obviously those are my details. Please feel free to take them down. As I said, if you have any questions or anything like that, please send me an email. I'm more than happy to jump on a call, whether it's one-on-one or with a group of you guys, and to talk about anything there as well. So I guess thanks very much for listening, guys, and good luck with using the tool.